I remember when I was a young Christian over 20 years ago. I knew I needed God's help, and I knew He had provided that help for real-life challenges. I was confident that Jesus was the answer and that His sacrifice on the cross was the key to it all, but I didn't understand how it worked. How does what Jesus did help me? How does the sacrifice He made on the cross make a difference in the problems that I face today? Does it even make a relevant difference now, or was all of that mainly just to take care of our eternal destination? God began to show me the answers to these questions in Romans, and that is when the dream for this book was born. Many people have the assumption that living by faith means ignoring all sorts of mysteries and inconsistencies around us. They assume the decision to follow God and trust Him deeply is a leap of faith, where we abandon our attempts to understand or to resolve uncertainties. That approach never sat well with me. Just being honest here, if that was what being a Christian was all about, I would not have survived. I like to ask questions, and I do not like to be kept in the dark. I was delighted to discover that the Bible doesn't ask us to depend on a leap of faith at all. The exact opposite is true. Faith is 100% about what God has revealed. And this isn't a secondary topic or an afterthought. It's the thesis for Paul's entire book of Romans, the hinge that the power of God to help us swings on. The practical help that God has provided for us through Christ leans completely on revelation, a demonstration and an explanation that gives us understanding, shapes our perspective and our experience. Consider this central point from Paul's introduction in Romans chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for the gospel is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, from faith to ever-increasing faith. As it is written, but the righteous will live by faith. Paul is telling us that the faith that saves is a faith that trusts, and it trusts specifically in what God has clearly revealed. This does not mean that we get all the answers we want from God. You will still have questions, I can guarantee that. Sometimes I feel like the more I lean on God, the more questions come up. The life of faith the Bible talks about does not mean that He eliminates all uncertainties or that we get to know exactly what to expect each day. But it does mean that He has provided all that we need to deal with the remaining unknowns. And He did that by making Himself known. There is profound power in the revelation of the one who is above it all. Perhaps one of the most important skills to learn in boot camp is how to remember what He revealed on the mountaintop when you find yourself in the valley. Spiritual success is trusting what He showed us in the light when we face the moments of darkness. It's remembering what He told us in the quiet as we face seasons when the noise is deafening. Paul actually starts and finishes with this main point. I already shared his thesis from the introduction. Now notice how he lands the plane in his conclusion in Romans 16, right at the end, verses 25 through 27. He says, "Now to God, who is able to establish you in accordance with my gospel, the message I proclaim about Jesus Christ, in keeping with the revelation of the mystery, hidden for long ages past, but now revealed and made known through the prophetic writings by the command of the eternal God, so that all the Gentiles might come to the obedience that comes from faith. To the only wise God be glory forever, through Jesus Christ. Amen." I think what Paul is saying is God establishes us in faith and in obedience by revealing His own heart directly to us through the gospel story. I'd like to share a concern about the boot camp title as I wrap up this video. Boot camp may give the impression that reading this book will be kind of grueling, like labor. Excruciating is the word that comes to mind. It would be even worse to expect life with Christ to be an ongoing, burdensome chore. While there are troubles you and I will not be able to avoid, the treasure I hope you find in these pages is that when the grace of God is at work in your life to show you His heart, to empower you to walk intimately with Him, Even the hard days can still have plenty of delight and hope. Even the difficult situations can be endured with resilient joy. My prayer for you is that you would find your greatest delight in God as you depend on Him and on what Jesus has shown us about Him. Thank you for listening and for diving into the book.